Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of Wedding Talk here on the Team Titus channel. So, we're happy that you came back to the channel, and today we are going to be discussing criteria that you should be considering while picking your wedding venue. And I'm going to start out today with another story. When I was, I want to say 18, I think, 18, 19, probably 19 actually. I was invited to be the best man in my best friend's wedding. And his name was Steve, and he was marrying his fiancee, Barb. And it was an absolutely gorgeous wedding. That, to this day, still one of the nicest weddings I've ever been in my life. It was at a United Methodist Church in Midland, Michigan, and it's the most beautiful church in Midland. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And what style would you say that is? It Victorian kind of?
Yeah, it
Uh,
has like the big pillars, kind of Greek pillars in the front. It's just a beautiful white
yeah,
church.
beautiful church. And they picked that church out. They had great food, great caterer, wonderful photographer. Back in the day, that he used to actually be one of our school teachers, English teacher. And it was just a wonderful day. The tuxes were beautiful, the dresses were beautiful, everything was just perfect. And this was in, I want to say it was July, and Steve, don't get after me if I don't remember exactly if it was July. I think it was July, maybe it was August, maybe it was June. All I know, it was hot. It was really hot. And when you ask people that were at their wedding, or if you ask them, what do you remember about your wedding? Oh, how hot it was. And it was like, yes. So they had like the perfect cake. They even had a quartet that played as they came down, walked down the aisle and everything. I mean, this was a absolutely well thought out, 100% beautiful wedding. But again, this was back in the 80s. I mean, there weren't a lot of churches that were air conditioned back then. So my point of the story is it was a beautiful, beautiful day. But when you ask people what they remembered about it, they remember that it was super hot. And you'll get that answer a lot when you talk with people, because we talk with a lot of people. We meet thousands of guests a year at our wedding venue, and we have conversations with them as we're out there. And one of the things they always remember is if they were hot, or if they were cold, or if there weren't indoor bathrooms, or there was no running water, or, I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, you can plan the most perfect day. You can put all your time into the food, the cake, the dresses, you name it. But if your guests are not comfortable, I am sorry to tell you, but that's what they're going to remember about your wedding. And Kendra, you had mentioned too that they may even leave early.
Yeah, you put so much time and effort. I mean, some people plan for years to for their big day, and you do not want your guests so unhappy or so uncomfortable that they leave early, which shuts down your reception early. So you want to make sure everybody is comfortable as best as you can.
Yes, exactly. So that's just a little story to get us going on criteria when picking out a wedding venue. And again, Steve and Barb, don't hold that against me. I just used that. It was still a beautiful wedding, and Steve and Barb are still married and happily married, and they have a whole clan now. So anyway, but what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of move in to the different types of venues that you may be considering. And we're going to kind of run down a little list, and then we're going to talk about your guests and how your guests could be affected by the type of venue that you choose, how your wedding party could be affected, and how your whole day can be impacted simply by your choices of your venue.
Exactly. When we built our barn venue, that was one of the things that we definitely kept in mind. Of course, we have a little bit more experience in the wedding industry, I'm sure, than you're just planning your wedding. We Prior to opening the barn, I think we had about 1,800 weddings under our belt. So we had seen all different kinds.
Yes.
But so when we built the barn, one of the criteria was air conditioning and heat and indoor bathrooms and wheelchair accessibility, because those are the things that we found that were issues at other venues or other places that ended up causing an issue in terms of the day. I've had people digging out at a barn trying to make a ramp so their grandmother can get into the barn. And that's something you need to think about.
It's
and
very
in their
true.
tuxes, by the way. And so you want to keep that in mind so that everybody can have an enjoyable day and you're not running around trying to figure that out.
Exactly. That is definitely something that needs to be considered.
So there's different kinds of ideas. Obviously, we're a rustic barn venue, so we're obviously more into that. But there, the new trend is industrial.
Well, and before we get on that, Kendra, you brought up something in my head when you said that. One of the things that I did before we built our wedding venue is I went out to other wedding venues and I went through and I read all the reviews and I made a spreadsheet of everything that people were complaining about or concerned with, or anything that negatively impacted the day. And I had a pretty good list. It was about 18 different things that I had seen in there, besides air conditioning, heat, indoor bathrooms, things like that. And I took that and I made that as our starting point. That was our ground zero. Now, there's no reason when you're planning your wedding and looking for that perfect venue for you that you couldn't do the same thing. And I'm not saying that you won't read reviews. Obviously, we all read reviews. But you want to look in those reviews not just for complaints, but things particularly about the venue. Maybe something that can't be changed right away or easily changed for you. And it might impact your guests. So, sorry about interrupting you, but that came to mind and I thought we
After
better talk about that.
27 years, it's fine. But yeah, well, we're going to go into the different ones, but we're not going to go into great detail about those because we might touch back with those when we talk about budget. But right now, we just want you to get it in your head, different ideas of the. There's just so many. So there's the rustic barn. There's the industrial. That's kind of new, where they take an old plan or an old, I don't even know, and
Firehouse.
firehouse.
There's
Yes,
a beautiful firehouse down on Grand
yeah,
Avenue in
in
Detroit.
Detroit. I
Beautiful
photographed there,
place.
and it was just such a cool place to get photographs.
A little scary for parking, but
And
what?
township halls, especially if you're local and you don't really have a lot of places to choose from. There might be a township hall in your area, and obviously they're usually pretty inexpensive too. Civic clubs such as American Legions, VFW halls,
Moose,
Moose,
eagles.
yes, those are great options as well. Convention centers. Now, those would be obviously something with if you're having a really large wedding, and I know some people do have really big weddings, so you might want to keep that in mind. A convention hall,
Convention centers and also casinos.
exactly.
With all the rising number of casinos throughout the country, a lot of the casinos have some amazing
Oh, and we've been
venues
to them, and
also.
they're just gorgeous.
So,
Country clubs, obviously, that's a you might have to be a member or know somebody a member, but they're beautiful. And obviously, as a photographer, I love it when people have their wedding at a golf club or a country club because it makes for such great pictures. Just a backyard wedding; those are popping up more and more with people on tighter budgets, and those are great and they make you feel a little bit more personable and you feel more comfortable maybe in your own backyard, especially if you're having more an intimate wedding.
mm-hmm.
And then of course another big thing that's we're finding people ask us about is Airbnb weddings, where they run an Airbnb
Yep.
and have a wedding there.
And you want to be very careful that if you do that, make sure the owner knows that you're having a wedding there.
Exactly.
One, they may have a clause where they don't allow something like that. The other is liability. You could be putting the owner of that Airbnb in a lot of liability situations with drinking going on, then people leaving and driving and whatnot. So just make sure you clear it with Airbnb first. And then the other thing that's there with Airbnbs, that's could be a beach wedding.
Oh, yeah, you can have a beach wedding. It's really about your personality and what you're looking for if you want it more intimate, more just personal, or if you want to have a more grand wedding and more traditional wedding for that matter.
Yeah.
So then these are just reception halls. So then you have to look at whether you're going to have your wedding there. You may make sure that they have the capability of having your wedding there. If not, you would have to have at a different location. Things that you want to take care of when you're looking at these different venues for your choice of where you want to have your reception and wedding is your guests and what they need. And I say that is because, like I said, there was a wedding I photographed at, and they're digging out and trying to make a ramp so grandma can even get in there.
Right.
And that's something you need to think about for people with maybe disabilities, special needs like that. You really need to make sure that happens. In climate control, and we kind of talked about that, especially some of your older people. I actually had somebody outside our venue that wasn't inside because we do have air conditioning inside, but it was a really hot day, and we had to call a paramedic because she passed out from heat stroke.
She had a heat stroke. She didn't get back into the facility quick enough,
Right.
and it impacted her.
So
And
you need to keep those things in mind, and obviously bathrooms is a big thing. How big is the bathroom? If you're having so many guests, you want more than just one bathroom. And obviously, as a bride, we all, as a woman and a bride, of course, you really don't want to take your dress into just any bathroom. So you really want it to be something that you feel comfortable taking in your wedding dress. So those are just some of the things we're going to talk about on this on our channel. We didn't really get into budget because that's a big thing too when you're picking out your venue, but we want to just at least give you some ideas of some of the different kinds of venues you could choose from.
and Kendra, the one thing about all of these is they could be an all-in-one type of banquet facility, or it could be bring your own. These are other things when you're looking at the type of venue that you want. Like if you know you want to bring in your own caterer and you want to bring in your own alcohol and you have specific things you know you want to work with, well, an all-in-one facility may not be what you're looking for.
But if
So,
you're limited on time and maybe you're the only person planning your wedding, unfortunately some people do not have the relationship with their family or anything like that. So they have to do it all on their own. So they may choose to have an all-in-one inclusive place to have their wedding.
yep. There's pros and cons for both, but these are just some of the things we want you to think about for criteria. But just remember that the day it is about you getting married, and that is the most important thing. However, when you're hosting a large party like this, it's something that you want to take into mind is the comfort of your guests. And one quick note, you mentioned climate control. You see that phrase in a lot of the rustic venues. Now they're considering climate control to be big fans that they'll set up and blow air with, or they consider it, they'll bring out patio heaters inside of a barn and turn those on. Now, yes, technically that falls under the definition of climate control, but if you're looking specifically for air conditioning and heating, you need to make sure they have it, because we've seen too many couples that have found this out later on and it was too late. We've even heard stories about um, our couples that will put in their invitations that our barn is air conditioned because with the rise in popularity of the rustic weddings, some people just, it's a hot day in August, 95 degrees out, humid, and they're not going to go into a barn and sit for 4 or 5 hours because it's going to be 110 inside that barn, and it's going to be hot, and it's going to smell like a barn. So, just things to keep in mind when you see words or phrases like climate control. Just make sure that you're very specific about what that is, because the last thing you want is a big surprise on your wedding day.
And I would suggest with all that, all the stuff we said, make a list of everything that's important to you that you would are looking for in your venue. So make a list. Make a list. Oh, it has to be handicap accessible. It needs to have air conditioning. Maybe you're in California and you don't really need the air conditioning. So just keep that in mind. We're in Michigan and obviously it gets pretty humid here. But depending on where you're located, but make a list of everything that is a priority to you and then go out and start looking for your venue.
That's perfect.
So, but we just wanted to give you those little tidbits and little bit of information. And like I said, this whole channel is all going to be about this, our experiences and helping you plan your wedding. And also, we're going to get into starting a wedding business because that's what we do. So we want everybody to be involved, and we just love what we do.
We'd love to hear any of your comments or questions that you have on this topic. And we're going to let you go now. Thank you for being here and watching the episode 1 of Wedding Talk.
Have
Have
a
a
good, yeah. I told you we've been married 27 years, so